Thanks for having me. My district is in Ohio, and my district runs from, we got a Buckeye here? All right. I'm going to whip Clemson's, okay? Anyway, sorry. And Ralph Resnick, who was on the panel, who runs our, here he is, who runs our Additive Manufacturing Institute in downtown Youngstown, is a big part of what's happening in Youngstown. And my district is just south of Cleveland, so it's Akron and Youngstown. And the cities that I represent, the areas I represent, are in many ways a tale of two cities. We have burgeoning technology, incubators, Additive Manufacturing Institute in Youngstown. Akron has similar things happening in polymers and business accelerators. But we have the same issues that a lot of other communities have, where you have deep poverty in our communities. Neighborhoods are falling apart. Safety services are not able to address the issues that need to get addressed. Areas of the downtown don't look like you'd like them to look. And I've watched this happen growing up not far from Youngstown, watching really the erosion of the manufacturing base. And just to give you some context, and all of you kind of know this, but we had a General Motors facility just outside of Youngstown. When it came in the late 1960s and grew, it ended up having at its peak about 16,000 auto workers, making really good money, a lot of overtime, and happy days are here again. We had the supplier to General Motors, which was Delphi, had plants in Warren, which is just north of Youngstown. They had about 13,000 high-wage union employees that were doing really, really well. And over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, we've seen General Motors facility go down to 3,000 or 4,000. They actually just laid off their third shift of 1,200 people, and then you can see the supply chain every 2 days in the newspaper, 1,200 today, 100 2 days later from the one supplier, 50 from the next supplier down, 25 from the next supplier down. So this has been really the story of communities in the Great Lakes states for a long time. And when I got to Congress, there was a caucus for everything. You have these caucuses. There's like a caucus for rock and roll. There's a caucus for Azerbaijan and everything in between. But there wasn't a manufacturing caucus. And I kind of knew that this was a path home for many, many people, is for us to figure out how to resuscitate the manufacturing base in the United States. And I'm not one of these people who say, well, we're going to bring all the old steel mills back. Trust me, I know we're not going to do that. I have pictures in many offices in our community where they have the whistle would blow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you'd have 5,000 or 10,000 people walking out of the steel mill with hard hats on and lunch buckets to go across the street and live in a steel mill town, and walk back the next morning. Those jobs aren't coming back. The world's a different place. But we have to figure out today how we are going to resuscitate manufacturing in the United States. It needs to be a part and has to be a part of any major global economic and defense power. It is not ancillary. It is not on the sidelines. It is essential. You have got to make things, and we need to make things in the United States. And we know we have high levels of productivity, but I think there are a lot of opportunities that we're not taking advantage of. I'll say my only political comment is this. I believe we're living in a time where the national storyline has been, for many, many years now, that anything that the government does is bad, from soup to nuts. Oh yeah, the government screws that up. Oh yeah, the government screws that up. Which is fine, having a few beers at a cocktail party to say that. But as your political and economic philosophy as a country, that is a bad idea, because the government is so intertwined. So it's about making the government work for businesses, make it work for the society and people who work there. And that means investments that are not called wasteful government spending. That means the Export-Import Bank that got caught up in this whole narrative of we hate the government stuff. That led to sequestration, huge cuts in defense, lack of an ability for companies and the Pentagon to plan long term. I mean, get a contract and say, well, in 6 months, we're not sure if the check's going to be coming in. Who's going to make a $10 billion investment on a handshake and a wink in this environment? So we, first and foremost, fundamental to moving forward is having a political environment that actually works, recognizing that it's a little bit government investment and a little bit, free enterprise, and try to find that sweet spot in the middle. And when you look at additive, which the great panel that was up here, you look at what other countries are putting into research and development in additive, and you look at what the United States is doing. So we're going to have a conversation with Ralph and other people who are running these institutes about what's going to happen with the institutes. Are these institutes going to stay online or not? We're going to have this conversation. China and other countries are going to be pumping billions of dollars into this area for research and development. And we're going to be left behind because we're sitting here fighting about, is that government spending or who's doing that? And what are we doing? This doesn't make any sense. You know it and I know it. And we need to get our act together to make sure that we can make these kind of investments. And we see now, I'm a Democrat, one of the few left after the Tuesday's election. But, and again, not to get political, but I'm telling Democrats right now, this is an opportunity for us to push policies that can help shape the new economy. And we need to be the party of ideas. We need to be the party of entrepreneurship. We need to be the party of public-private partnerships in order for us to really throw gasoline on the entrepreneurial and innovative fires that are going on in the United States. And there's an opportunity for us to do that. And we have to be the party. If you look at the old economy, it was a reaction to that economy was shaped our public policy. So it was very industrial, it was dangerous. There wasn't anything for someone to do towards the end of their life when they no longer could work at a steel mill. So the policies came in to help shape that economy. And some people can complain about it and some people cannot. But the reaction was, how do we make the workplace safer? How do we have a 40-hour work week? How do we have Social Security? How do we have Medicare so people at the end of their life will have health care and a place to live and not be in poverty? All of these things happened around the economy. So here we are moving into, already in, a very new dynamic economy. So I want us to be the party that creates policies that allow you as entrepreneurs to thrive. And that means research and development is a great investment, not a waste of money. That means recognizing that the average millennial, which will be 50% of or more of the workforce in the next 5 years, and they're going to have on average of 40 or 50 or 60 different jobs throughout their lifetime, which sounds absolutely exhausting to me, but true. So what are the policies we're going to promote that are going to allow those workers, those entrepreneurs to thrive? And what are the policies we're going to be able to promote that will allow manufacturing to thrive? And so if this economy and the workers in the economy are all about mobility, then the government policies need to promote things that allow people to function and navigate and make quick decisions in this dynamic economy, which means, in my estimation, portability. New workers are going to need portable health care, portable pensions, portable job training benefits, and probably portable welfare benefits. Because if you're on welfare and you're stuck in a system and in a community that's not creating jobs, but there's a job over there in that town or in that state over the border from Youngstown to Pennsylvania, but I'm stuck here because this is where I'm surviving now with my kids, and I know there's something there, but I can't take advantage of it. Why are we holding people back? And I don't have all the details of how we would work that out legislatively, but that better be the goal, is to allow people to function in this environment. We're hearing a lot about the tax code, that may be an issue in the next, or the first few weeks of the new year, of the new Congress. But as I talk to manufacturers around the country, many of them say this idea that you lower the rates and close the loopholes and broaden the base will mean a huge tax increase for manufacturers. And this is what big manufacturers are telling me. So while it may sound good to say something like that, is it really going to be a step in the right direction for manufacturing? And I'd rather leave some time for some questions too, but I want to just make a couple of points. I believe that a move towards a clean energy economy is a fantastic idea for our country, for climate change, and for manufacturing. And if we want to resuscitate manufacturing, here is an issue that can address a lot of things. And I look for issues that if you hit a pressure point, it has all kinds of different benefits to it. So if we move and say we want to be the global leader in clean energy, renewable energy, to me, I hear, as someone who grew up outside of Youngstown, Ohio, I hear 8,000 component parts in a windmill. I hear gear shifts and hydraulics and gearboxes, and I hear aluminum, and I hear steel, and I hear concrete, and I hear the big blades that need to get made. I hear we need to really expand the grid and into places, and I'm starting to hear and see jobs that can't be outsourced, knowing that the wind turbine technician is the fastest growing job in the country right now. Hearing these things and the opportunity that we may have to create 600,000 jobs in this field in the next few decades. That's an opportunity for us as a country, and obviously an opportunity for companies like GE and entrepreneurs who are going to be involved in making and setting that course. And it's the same thing as going to the moon. The government didn't go to the moon. The companies that invented all the products helped put us to the moon. But it was the government that said, this is the goal, here's the money, let's make it happen, and make it happen now. Now I think of a young, charismatic president coming before the country today and saying, we're going to go to the moon. Can you imagine this today? Can you imagine a president coming out and say, we're going to go to the moon? I would like to see the cable news channels after he or she said that. But we got to shake that off in this country, or we're going to continue to be behind. And not that we're behind in everything, but I know we're not reaching the potential that we can reach as a country. And I think manufacturing is key to that. Research and development is key to that. Getting capital for early startups is key to that. Business incubators are key to that. Business accelerators are key to that. Portability and mobility are key to that. These are all the things that we need to do as a country to help us move forward. And we need your help. We need your expertise. We need your knowledge. We need your experiences that you have, both good and bad, as I hear entrepreneurs have. Sometimes turns into therapy sessions. That's just what people tell me. But we have a lot of work to do. And we're entering a phase in the country, in our country's history, where we really got to decide, are we going to be a great country? Are we going to continue to lead the world? Or are we going to shrink back and hesitate from the responsibilities that come with being a member of our society in 2016 and 17? And President Obama said we can't be afraid of the future, we have to shape it. That's what America does. We shape the future. And it gets frustrating for those of us in government who see what's happening at America Makes in Youngstown, Ohio, sees what's happening in our business incubator in Youngstown, Ohio, and sees all this success happening without really the support and the thrust of a federal government that is ready to take all of this to the next level. So thank you for being here to educate yourself. We're here through the Manufacturing Caucus, Congressman Reed and I, who's my Republican counterpart from upstate New York, to continue the process, to continue fighting, and to continue to try to shape an economy that works for you and helps push you along to the extent we can. And I'm happy to take any or a few questions in the last few minutes that we have. Thank you so much.
David Brosell from the Manufacturing Leadership Council. What do you think should be the Democratic minority strategy with the now completely Republican Congress and the incoming Republican administration to get these ideas in effect that you've just articulated? What strategy will you take to win them over?
Well, we're all interested in to see how the next few months play out. We are all in uncharted waters. I think it starts with not opposing every single thing right out of the gate that the Trump administration is proposing. I mean, obviously there are going to be things that we can't support for whatever reasons, philosophical or otherwise, but I'm not one who's going to take this. I voted for Hillary Clinton, I campaigned for Hillary Clinton, I didn't like Donald Trump, and I'm going to be against everything that he proposes. I just think that's unfair. I just think that's unfair. The American people voted for him, whether I like it or not. And so we have an obligation to sit down and try to work with him. And as he comes forward with a transportation bill or tax bill, our responsibility, constitutionally and otherwise, is to sit down and try to make a deal, try to make something together that we all could vote on. And it's important for us to try to do that. And that's going to be my strategy, and I think it's the strategy of a lot of others. I don't know if it's the strategy of our House minority leadership at this point, but that's my strategy. A few words about TPP. It's not going anywhere. I don't think anytime soon. I think it is an opportunity for us to, if we're serious about it, on both sides, because we are in a position now where both parties are against it. I think it's time to sit down and try to recraft a new model for trade agreements, where both sides can come together, where we have working class people and unions and others that are very interested in these agreements at the table, and figure out how to create a model where we can do global commerce, participate in the global economy, thrive in the global economy, open up markets abroad to export in, also influence our friends and allies in regions like the Pacific, where we need to continue to, Pacific Rim and other places that we need to have influence. And we also have to factor in our defense, military, and geopolitical interests into these agreements, because you can't separate that out either. But I hope we sit down now and get the country behind a new model, because clearly the country is not for the current model. And I'll tell you, if you get a map, I just saw a map from an MIT professor. I think everybody who pays attention recognizes that global trade in the aggregate is good. The problem is it's had devastating effects in communities like the ones I represent. And this map had all of the areas of the country who have been really hurt by, I think this map was Chinese imports. And you can not like it, but that's the reality of these communities. They've been hollowed out. And now it's heroin, it's drugs, it's crime. The schools go down the toilets. There's no tax base. There's no pull yourself up by your bootstraps, because you don't even have a tax base to go make a deal, and your workforce doesn't necessarily look like it should. And so we can't just talk about trade and comparative advantage from a textbook. There are communities in our country that went from having the kind of manufacturing base that I mentioned when I started to now having very high rates of unemployment and high rates of underemployment, and all of the other social costs that come with that. These are our fellow citizens. Like, fine, is this how the trade's gonna go? Great, okay, if that's exactly what we're gonna do, then what are we gonna do with these communities that are gonna get wrecked? That's unfair. If we knowingly know that's, if we knowingly understand that that's going to happen, and we're going to continue to do the old trade model, then we better have a solution, investments, and the kind of things that need to go into these communities. I actually sent the president when he was doing, when he was trying to do fast track last year. I sent him a letter. I'm saying, before you even get it fast track, and you're going to get bipartisan support on this, before you even go there, tell the Republicans you want a transportation bill, and you want it to be huge. You want it to be enough to put a lot of people back to work that will facilitate any discussion that you want to have down the road on a trade agreement. So those kind of things I think we need to start talking about. I got 3 zeros over here. I'll take one more if it's okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Danny Bahar from the Brookings Institution. So I wonder, also with regards to trade and with regards to automation, and these trends that we're seeing, which manufacturing is of course getting hit by both phenomenon, why hasn't the discussion, this is a follow-up to your previous explanation, why don't you think the discussion in policy circles have moved towards actually providing safety nets to people that are going to get hurt, instead of moving what we saw in the last election cycle in both parties, to moving to more isolationist or more protectionist policies to increase tariffs or do all these kind of things, instead of actually focusing on the fact that we're not going to be able to stop the automation trends or the trade trends, and not focusing on the safety nets.
And the point well taken on the automation and the technology, which is about 2/3 of the displacement. But people, and this is what this election, I think, reflects in the psyche and the hearts of a lot of people in the country. They don't want to hear about the social safety net. They don't want to hear about job retraining. They want a job, And yeah, maybe you have to get retrained, of course. The economy has changed, and I don't think we do them any good, or those workers any good, by lying to them. The steel mills are going to come back, we're going to open up the coal mines and that kind of thing. I think that's a disservice to them. But if they know they have a job, then they'll get retrained, as opposed to getting retrained for things that aren't around. And that's happened a lot because of the disconnect between our community colleges, our workforce training programs around the country. And they're just fed up. You have, in the last 20 years, you've had every drop of income growth in the United States went to the top 10%. Now, if you go back to the late 1970s, income growth, 70% of income growth went to the bottom 90%. These people, and that means they're flatlined, while gas isn't flatlined and tuition isn't flatlined, and all of the normal commodities and everything else have been going up. They've been squeezed and they're fed up. And that's why I think we need a huge jobs program in the United States. We have enough work to do. We're not making it up. We have bridges that are structurally deficient. We have roads that need built, airports that need built, the grid. Are we going to rebuild the United States or not? Are we going to sit here and say, well, that's government spending? Yeah, well, guess what? It needs done. Who is anyone going to, GE want to do it? Or, like Yahoo want to do it? Or like Uber? Like who wants to rebuild the country? Right? Nobody. We got to do it. It's our country. And we have kids drinking water that's got lead in it. We've got lead paint all over our older cities that sticks in kids' brains. And they go to school and they can't learn because they have lead in their head. And it's Youngstown, Detroit, Flint, Gary, Indiana, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Madison, Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's everywhere. That's not okay. It's not right. We have the money to do it. We're not going to go bankrupt. And we will, if we make this solid investment over the next 5 or 10 years, we are going to set our country up to have another really great run in driving the global economy. And so, but you got to get people to work, and there's enough to do. And if they move from steel workers to building and construction trades or painting bridges or whatever the case may be, that's fine. We talk about free college. Now I'm all fired up, so I'm sorry you have to be exposed to this. we talk about like free college. That was like a big issue in the last campaign, which is, sounds great. Only a third of millennials have college degrees. Only a third. So we're not even talking to the other 2/3 who don't, We don't talk about trade schools anymore. We got rid of home economics. We got rid of shop class. We got a whole retooling process to go through. And listen, I know about retooling processes because I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. So we do this every couple years. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. But we've got to really think about how we create the next great iteration of America. What is America? I'll leave you with this. What is America 2.0? What's it look like? What's it feel like? What's it sound like? What's the next iteration of our country? It is not let the bridges collapse, let China invest more in R&D than we are in certain areas. It's not what we're doing right now. We got to think bigger and what we want the country to look like in 10 years or 20 years for your kids or your grandkids. And it starts with rebuilding the country, reinvesting back in the country, and making America the kind of dynamic economy that works for everybody that we know it can be. Thank you.